Well, I'd like to thank everybody for having us. This is Pat O'Meara. I'm with Invenium Capital Partners, and we are in the process of tokenizing the limited partnership interests of a limited partnership that will be buying the security building here. We have 4 other projects that we're doing, and we are doing this WeWork building in downtown Miami. We are doing a student housing deal in North Dakota, around NDSU. We are doing a infrastructure pipeline in North Dakota, and then we're also going to do a multifamily housing project on the southwest coast of Florida. This is roughly $260 million that we're raising, and this presentation is going to be specifically about the security building, and then we'll be taking a tour of the security building later today. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is start with introductions, and so Tony, if you could give a brief introduction of yourself and
Sure.
Metro One, and we'll get started.
Good morning. So my name is Tony Cho, and I'm a native Floridian, and I'm the CEO and founder of Metro One, which is a vertically integrated real estate firm here in South Florida that's been on the front lines of the emerging marketplaces such as Wynwood, Little River, the Design District, and right here in downtown Miami as an early pioneer in these neighborhoods where we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth and infill. And we focus on brokerage, management, and development, and our principals in about $2 billion worth of development here in South Florida, including the Magic City Innovation District, which is a inspiring project in Little Haiti that's being entitled for 8 million square feet that will leverage technology to create a neighborhood that strives to be a city of the future. And so our focus has really been on being innovative in the real estate space and leveraging technology and culture to create a unique sense of places like Wynwood Arts District, where we were one of the early adopters and pioneers, and a place I've been in for about 17 years. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with each and every one of you. And this building, the WeWork building that we're in now, the security building, the partnership interests are being tokenized, is probably one of the most significant historic and trophy assets here in Miami, with one of the best tenants that you can possibly have. That's also a tech tenant that is a behemoth of a company, WeWork. And so all the pieces are really interesting, and really excited to be part of this transaction, and have learned a lot, working with the guys from Invenium, who are really on the cutting edge of tokenization of assets, and really something special to be part of. So it's an incredible asset, and happy to be here today. So thanks for having me, Pat.
Tony, it's great to
And I do want to make a little introduction. This is Jack Conrad. Say hi, Jack.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm part of the investment sales team at Metro One, and I'm excited to be a part of a platform that utilizes and transforms neighborhoods into better things. And I'm also part of the Miami community, been here for 20 years. And I'm excited to be a part of this transformational project and transaction. Thank you so much.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, both of you, for being here. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. And so what is this tokenization? A tokenization is literally where we take the form of certification, where the certificate is a digital instrument. And it's a digital instrument that, when you think about a lot of these other forms of certification, so when you get a stock certificate from IBM, if somebody breaks into your house and they steal your stock certificate, you haven't lost it. Instead, what happens is you file an affidavit for lost certificate and you get another one, but it is an evidence of ownership. Here, this token is an electronic instrument that, again, is evidence of your ownership. And unlike what you see with some of the cryptocurrency, where we're going to be intersecting with, and we'll talk about, anonymity is not one of the functions. We need to know who the owners are, who the limited partners are. And what this does is it creates the ability for us not only to know who the limited partners are, but it also gives us the ability to create functionality into the electronic instrument. And what we mean by that is literally 100% of all of the data associated with this transaction is going to be stored electronically. And so what we do is, there's lots of people doing tokenization who are doing great infrastructure work, people like Securency and Harbor and Polymath and Securitize. But those guys are creating tokens where the function of the token is to clear instantaneously and to know who the owner is. AML, KYC, or anti-money laundering, and know your customer functionality. That's a functionality that Invenium has not done any work on. We're relying actually on the good work of all those other people that we look at their infrastructure for us to succeed and perform. But in reality, the ability for a data-rich, low latency, something that doesn't trade often, think private debt, think real estate limited partnership, right? The ability for that to become liquid doesn't mean that it can settle immediately. The ability for it to be liquid is that there are bids for it, right? And what do you need to generate bids? You need data. And so what Invenium has done is created over the last 3 years an ability to store all of the data offline that is hashed into the payload of a block. And we can talk about what that means. And so all of the data associated with the transaction, when that token is transferred from one person to another, literally 100% of all of the data, meaning the legal contracts, the rent rolls, the insurance binders, surveys, appraisals, all of that transfers instantaneously. But not only that, the mechanism of search can now be utilized. And what do I mean? So big data, quantitative strategies using AI and machine learning can now crunch data in real estate the same way that it does in equities and the same ways that it does in other online functionality, right? We joke that, and you've heard this before from me, that the online market for on a secondary basis for taxidermy is more efficient than the secondary market for bonds, right? The reality is, that Martine, when your wife suddenly just becomes angry with you and says, you've got to get rid of the stuffed moose head in the living room, right? You have no choice, but you got to get rid of it. You can go online to eBay, see the clearing price for all of them, and you can see the clearing price for all of them and literally set the price and it will trade. When you have invested in private debt, which is a growing business globally, middle market debt, non-bank lending is a massive market. When you're an investor in that, there is no secondary market other than point-to-point or what's called OTC, where you have a broker doing that. When you have other illiquid assets, real estate like the WeWork building, right, that you own a percentage in or a piece of, the only way to sell it is literally to go point to point, and unless you know a person who knows a person who knows a person, the mechanism of it becoming an efficient market is dramatically limited. So there are efficient markets in real estate and private debt that are here, and that efficiency happens around geographies. What we've done is created a mechanism for all of the data associated with this transaction to be stored, to be tokenized, and literally we are going to turn that efficient part of the market into one that is global, so that all of these quantitative strategies can be utilized. So right now, if somebody wants to sell something to Prudential or to MetLife or to Swiss Re or the large buyers of both real estate assets or private debt, what do? They have to have somebody who is a fixed income salesman or real estate salesman who knows a buyer, pick up the phone and say, what are you buying now? And that's very valuable for the guys at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and other places who sell to them. But unless you know what they're buying, there is no mechanism for them to have people designing products specifically for their purchase. And that's what Invenium has created. We've created software that allows attorneys, accountants, securities professionals, real estate professionals to build instruments where the quantity and quality of the data is known that needs to be there for an institutional buyer, but also the institutional buyers can put out algorithms and say, I want you to buy X or Y or Z for me. So the same way somebody in Topeka, Kansas can literally create a website and through search engine optimization can optimize that website through social media and other connections and get on the front page of a Google search immediately. The creation of a financial instrument, a debt instrument or a real estate instrument, where literally you're building it for the algorithm that you know that institutional buyers want that. So we're optimizing the creation of financial instruments so that big data can work and we can have literally a global, efficient marketplace for high data, low latency assets. What that means is the illiquidity premium for private borrowers and for real estate transactions ought to diminish. Because today, for public projects and then off the run projects that are not in downtown Miami, right, or in New York or in LA, they're paying a significant premium for illiquidity. We think that through the utilization of this technology, there's going to be the compression of that. So what we've done is, again, we have these 4 projects. We have a partnership that is going to be a commercial real estate partnership that is buying the WeWork building in its entirety, and we're tokenizing that interest. We can take cryptocurrency as a form of payment. So we can take 11 different types of cryptocurrency, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, that will come in, and we'll deliver to you a token that you can hold in your crypto wallet. Your limited partnership payments that are going to come out quarterly, you can accept them in cash through a linked account, or you can accept them in whatever cryptocurrency you want. Bitcoin, not anyone that you want. We're not using Monero, and we're sticking to kind of the main 11, and we'll do more. We'll do any of the top 50 other than Monero, unless it's something that we would need to control more than 5% of the float. So with that being said, we are in the process of literally buying this building. We have this building under contract with Tony's help, and Andrea, who's over in Switzerland, thank you, and Jack and the other folks here, Greenspoon Martyrs, helping us with the acquisition. We will be closing on the limited partnership, taking the cash in the form of crypto. We'll be delivering tokens back into people's crypto wallets. If there is an institutional buyer who does not want crypto, we can settle this physically, meaning regular way settlement, the same way you do any other limited partnership. It's just that your tokens will be issued, but they'll be held in the issuer's wallet. And so if you like the credit, you like the structure, you like the location, and you like the coupon of this deal, the tokenization, we say, is a technology call option on the future that's free. Meaning, if in fact what we're saying happens in the next 2 to 3 years, in fact, you will be able to trade this at a premium in 2 to 3 years, because A, it will be the oldest one out there, and B, it will there'll be an efficient marketplace that you can market this to. And what we mean by that is literally we have the ability to say, as people begin to buy online, we'll be able to see their patterns and be able to match. And we can right now use matching algorithms by knowing what people's buying patterns are in literally everything. Literally, when you go and you buy clothes online, when you buy peanut butter, they'll give you recommendations for jelly. When you buy a book, they'll give you a recommendation for another book. But the reality is, your only mechanism for recommendations for engines are people like Tony right now, right? He knows what you like to buy, he knows what you like to buy, and he's going to recommend other pieces of real estate. There is no mechanism for data to be gathered and literally projects being pushed to you in the geographies you care about, that you like, that you'll see. So the deal flow that comes to you is going to be significantly greater. The value add is going to be in structuring, underwriting the credit, and making sure that the technology delivery is excellent. That's where the value add is going to be. So that's the tokenization process. I've gone probably a little bit too long into it. So why don't I take us through this security building? Again, this is going to be an offer to qualified purchasers and qualified institutional buyers only. It's a 506C offering with 144 and 144A resale. And all of the materials will be available in a deal room for anybody who'd like to see them. Our attorneys are Foley and Lardner out of Chicago, and they're going to be putting this together. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to look today over the next 15 minutes or so at the security building. We're going to go over the transaction. We're going to discuss the asset a little bit. We're going to talk about the market and the tenant. We're going to go through the trade process in a step-by-step basis, and then we'll end this meeting and we'll do a walkthrough of the building in person. That will be recorded, so we'll be able to post that online. I know that our last presentation up in New York, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people watching those presentations, and if anybody online would like to see those now, let us know. Again, this transaction overview is the partnership is going to be funded by the sale of its interest through a tokenized asset sale. We'll be doing that the second week in April. It looks like is the time frame for that sale. The property purchase will be completed after the completion of the sale of the limited partnership to qualified purchasers and qualified institutional buyers. The transaction, as I said, can be settled electronically or physically. We hope to raise 65 million, but we have a minimum raise of 30 million. That is the transaction. The tenant is 100% occupied by WeWork through an affiliated entity. We should have a net operating income of 3.4 million. This has an implied cap rate of 5.2.
That's unlevered.
That's on an unlevered basis. That's correct. We think that this is on a levered basis. We can be hitting 7%, and then through the sale down the road, possibly passing 8%. The physical structure is 117 Northeast Avenue in Miami, built in 1926 and completely renovated. Tony's going to take us through that in a minute. The one data point that we are unaware of, and this data is in the deal room, is that through the acquisition, our tax assessment will go up. We are unaware of what that tax assessment is going to be. We, as a partnership, are going to bear the burden of that increase in tax for a year before we pass it on to WeWork. So there will be a 1-year denigration of our cash flow until we pass that increase in taxes onto WeWork. A copy of the lease, a copy of all of the documentation on the building is in here. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is maybe ask Tony to tell us a little bit more about this part of town and tell us about the WeWork building and its history. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat. I'm going to also bring Jack in, who was involved in the transaction, and talk about a little bit about where we are. We're in the Central Business District. We're basically one block off of Flagler Street, which is kind of the Champs-Élysées of downtown Miami. It's not as glamorous as Paris, but it's certainly, in the Roaring '20s, downtown Miami was it. This was the place to be. This is where Al Capone hung out, and in fact, in the penthouse, they named it the Al Capone Suite because apparently Al Capone came here. This was a residential condo building, the security building that was actually bought as a fractured condo building by the previous owner. And I think what's important to know, Pat, is that before you came in this transaction, it was under active negotiations with several other traditional real estate groups. So
Correct.
This is a highly, highly desirable asset that's still under negotiations by other groups that are kind of waiting in the wings to see what happens here. We've now got control of it, and we're excited that you guys are going to be closing on it. But this is an off-market opportunity, which of course was not widely marketed to the public, and is now under contract by Invenium, which is exciting. So
and in that one of the interesting data points is we put this under contract, and I believe we're the first one where we put down 1,500, just under 1,500 Bitcoin as the form of the deposit, right? Which took a few minutes with the lawyers to get them comfortable with the fact that and we have one of the sellers in the room, took them a minute as well. Then after we got through the inspection period, we converted that into cash. And so now we are hard on this transaction, and we are going to be raising this money through the auction and then closing it out. We do have a number of indications of interest from several people who are on watching this, as well as others who have watched the previous roadshow presentation. So we do feel fairly confident, but I do think that that's an interesting data point that we did use Bitcoin as the form of deposit.
Super unique. It's the first transaction I've been involved in with cryptocurrency being taken as a deposit. And I think more interesting was the work that was done around finding an escrow. And Manny Crespo, who's here as well, who's the attorney for the buyer, was involved in that process, which was complex, to say the least, in finding an escrow agent that would hold Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a deposit and would insure it. And who was the company that you guys ended up finding?
So Itbit, which is part of Paxos. Yeah.
Yeah, part of Paxos. So incredible asset. We're in the Central Business District. We're literally blocks from the new Miami Central Station, which is owned by Fortress, which is Brightline's high-speed rail that has just come through the state of Florida with now stops in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm, with planned stops in Orlando, Disney, and eventually Tampa. And this high-speed train recently partnered with Virgin to do a marketing partnership, and is now moving. I think they estimate somewhere around 3 million passengers by 2020. And it's really kind of been a catalyst for transformation, this whole area. Just directly to the east, you have Miami World Center, which is a massive, massive development with a convention center. I think something like 1,500 hotel rooms and a huge convention center, which is adjacent to the American Airlines Arena, the Perez Art Museum, and the Frost Science Museum, which is adjacent to the Arch Performing Arts Center. So you're really kind of in the greater Central Business District, right in the heart of it, next to the predominant street, which is Flagler, which, with the help of the Downtown Development Authority, is undergoing a massive revitalization and a redo project of that whole street. And so you're basically a block off of Flagler, and you're a few blocks from Brightline and Miami World Center and all of these cultural amenities that are around you. You have Miami-Dade Community College, which is one of the largest community colleges in the country, which has its downtown campuses here, literally blocks away. And you're right basically in the heartbeat of Miami, in its Central Business District, with now thousands and thousands of residential units around you, which didn't exist 10 years ago, and now exist as a live, work, and play environment, where it was just really daytime office population about 15 years ago. And during the last boom, developers like Related and others put together a lot of residential projects, and you're seeing downtown as kind of the hub of innovation in terms of creating new buildings and loft buildings and things where millennials and professionals and students and artists alike have all congregated to create a unique vibe of what's going on down here. You have the Langford Hotel, which was one of the first boutique hotels that came into downtown. So you're seeing a transformation. And then along the Miami River, you're also seeing a lot of development happen, which basically separates Brickell, which is your financial district, from your Central Business District. And so the WeWork building, which is is the security building, was a building that was built originally as a bank in 1927 during the glory days and the roaring 20s in Miami, where Miami was a major port and still is a major port, and a lot of the traffic would basically come all into downtown Miami.
And what we see in this picture, I wanted to do this, put this picture up for Tony. This is this is the bank vault. Right. That is one of the conference rooms in the building. It's a fantastic building with really some wonderful architecture in it, and it really is the flagship for WeWork. Tony, I'm gonna go ahead and drive through this.
Go for it.
The process of this is the tenant itself is WeWork. You can find lots of information about them online. They're a fantastic tenant. Their recent capital raise by folks like JP Morgan and SoftBank gave them an implied valuation of $42 billion.
With revenue of $2.5 billion last year.
With revenue of $2.5 billion last year. And they're the largest real estate tenant in New York City at this point, and really somebody growing globally. And as we see their operations, and we've done due diligence on this building, it's obvious to see why. So let's go through the asset sale really quickly. This is going to be a Dutch auction, and the reason we're doing this as a Dutch auction is while there is a little bit of novelty around the structure, meaning taking the ability to take this as an electronic instrument, we didn't want there to be any questions about the investment process itself. And so what we're doing is we're making sure in the Dutch auction, everybody will get the same price, meaning once we have enough bids to clear the trade, everybody will get the bid that allows us to clear the trade. So if we have 20 million at 105, we have 5 million at 104, and we have 10 million at 103, we'll clear 35 million at 103. if that's what we're going to take, which is kind of the minimum amount we need to clear. But the point is, everybody will get the same price. We wanted this to be something that is completely transparent. The folks who are going to bid, you're going to bid on our platform through a secure form of communication. We'll give you a template, but first we're going to take people through where they sign an NDA. We're going to vet everybody bidder, that they're a qualified bidder doing AML KYC functionality. We'll allow them into the deal room, give them all the documentation, and give you a simple form of bidding, which will come in and it'll say what the price that you want to pay. Each token is $50,000. You have to buy a minimum of 10 tokens, which is 500,000. That's the minimum bid. So if you're going to bid 103, that means you'd be paying 51,500 per token. And what we'll do is we will also take those bids where the third dimension is what you want to bid in. I want to bid in cash. I want to bid in Bitcoin. The conversion from crypto to cash is going to be on a published basis. So we're going to publish 3 days before the auction what the conversion rate that we're going to list is. So it's a discount on the daily price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, and we're using our partner who's also here in Miami, Grapefruit Trading, and Mike Komaransky, who's handling all of that conversion for us. And that is a little bit of a trick where we take in up to 260 million of crypto and we don't sync the price of those. So he is running an auction on the other end with institutional buyers. The tokens are going to be sold via Dutch auction. We'll let you know that your bid has been hit or not. The auction will run from 9 to noon on a single day. We are taking early bids. We were not going to take early bids, but we've been getting unsolicited bids coming in. So we are taking in early bids. We will close it at the actual auction. We'll process the early bids, and it'll be from 9 to noon, the second week of April. At noon, we will cease the auction. We'll process it. We'll let people know within the hour if they have their bid has been accepted. We will then immediately come back and give you the subscription agreement for execution, ask you to submit payment in. Within 15 minutes of receiving payment in your wallets, you'll have your tokens, right? So it will be relatively instantaneous. If you'd like physical settlement, within 7 days, you'll have settlement. The limited partnership is that's going to exist. Invenium Capital Partners, a subsidiary. Invenium Principal Investing has another wholly owned subsidiary, which is going to be the general partner of it. All of that will be in the operating agreement, which will be in the data room. This structure is designed for U.S. taxpayers. If there are overseas investors who would like to utilize a blocker C corporation, we need to have a minimum of bids to do that for it to make economic sense for us. Ben, we know that you and Brendan are online, and so once we have your bid in, we'll go ahead and structure that Reg S offering documentation for you specifically, or anybody else who wants to use offshore money. But this transaction is designed for taxpayers. Okay, and I'm going to take us through. This is this transaction. The income is relatively easy to understand. These are actual financials. We're talking about 3.4 million of net ordinary income. And we're looking at our historical 17 and 18, right? We had 3.2, 3.4. We have 12 years left on this lease. We do think because of the investment in the area, we have an opportunity at the renewal of lease to get a nice bump in price in the next go round.
Absolutely, and one thing to note, this is one of 6 only corporately guaranteed WeWorks in the entire world. Just so people know, because WeWork's not doing corporate guarantees anymore.
Correct.
There is a burn off, but
there's a burn off, correct? But right now this is fully occupied, so we're getting the rents. So the corporate guarantee has not been touched, and we do have a bank letter of credit from that's been put up by WeWork on to support this transaction. And again, this lease, there's a rent escalation that's in the lease that's going to happen every year for the next 12 years. So basically, we're clipping a coupon at 5% while we have the upside of the transformation of this neighborhood, right? It's a nice, safe asset. It's tokenized. And we also think because it is the first tokenized real estate asset where the underlying asset is the entirety of the asset. It's not a percentage of the profits or a percentage of revenue. So if there's difficulty, it gets rinsed, but it's the actual purchase of the entire building. Because of that, we believe that the asset itself, just like in the early days of the internet, right, where search, the older the asset, the longer that asset had been communicating data, the more the algorithms valued that data. This will be first, we think, because of the novelty. There's gonna be a premium that's gonna be paid on this, and we have, it's very interesting doing this. We are the first who's doing this, where we will take crypto as a form of payment for tokenized assets at this intersection. And it is a new reality for us as we get to know a lot of people in the crypto world, and we have a number of bids that we are expecting to come in, not only for this asset, but for others who want to pay crypto. But in addition, we also have people who are institutions who want to dip their toe into crypto. So they're buying a tokenized asset. They're going to hold that in a crypto wallet, knowing if they lose that private key, we can create a new token for them in a new wallet. We have that ability where we can burn the token and deliver it back into another wallet if somebody loses this. So it's kind of a starter way to get into crypto. And people are also going to take their interest and principal distributions that might be coming out of here in crypto, yet they have the surety of the underlying asset. So it's a way that we're seeing some institutions dip their toe into here. So again, this offering is going to be governed by 506C. It's a Reg D. And so we'll have to certify everybody's an accredited investor, but because we're also relying on Rule 501c7, everybody also has to be either a qualified purchaser or a quib. Most of the buyers we think are going to be qualified institutional buyers, which allows resale under 144A, which means there's immediate liquidity and resale available as long as the buyer is a qualified institutional buyer as well. Again, what you're going to own is the limited partnership. The tokens can be held in a digital wallet that we're going to distribute to you, or we can hold it on your behalf in an authorized but unissued form. 500,000 is the minimum. We have to do AML KYC on every investor. Crypto liquidity is coming through Grapefruit Trading. All the transaction, even though you invest in crypto, will be denominated in dollars, as will the returns. So if Bitcoin goes up, you still own a dollar asset, but if Bitcoin goes down, you still own a dollar asset, right? And it's just your limited partnership payments will be going out in the form of currency you prefer. We do not have the ability to use cryptocurrency that acts like a derivative, because then we would be regulated by the CFTC. So any cryptocurrency that has a derivative functionality, we do not have the ability to utilize that. I want to give that quick disclaimer. Liquidity, if anybody wants to sell this, the GP has to approve the sale, and we have a right of first refusal. That's all we're doing, and we have to approve the sale, so it needs to be another qualified institutional buyer or qualified purchaser, because we don't want the sale to happen to someone who would wreck the exemption of the offering itself. So that's the overview. We appreciate everybody coming, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a minute and say, does anybody have any questions for us? And then we're going to do a little walkthrough in the building here. This went a few minutes, 5 minutes longer than I expected. But does anybody have any questions here?
I mean, I guess a question that I might have that maybe some of the other buyers might have, what are some of the tax implications that a transaction like this may have that may differ from a traditional real estate transaction?
So this is a limited partnership. So everything else, you're going to get a K1, just, and by the way, your K1 will be online. And so literally all you do is you go to the Invenium site, you go to your MetaMask wallet, click on the token, you can actually see your K1, which is going to be stored electronically, and every past K1, and so all the data will be there, but we'll deliver that K1 for you. The only implication that there is if you bought your form of investment. If it's a cash investment, it's easy, right? If you're using crypto, you do have a cost basis analysis that you have to engage in, right? So if you bought at 16,000, you got a great gain. You got a great loss that you're gonna realize. Right. If you got your Bitcoin at 12 cents,
Right.
you will in fact have a taxable event. So that's the only thing is we are taking an asset that there may be tax consequences based on the cost basis of the
on the arbitrage of your crypto as well. Okay, that's interesting. The thing that's very exciting to me about this transaction is the transparency, and then having the deal room where basically all of your due diligence can be vetted and will be on the blockchain, which I think is phenomenal, and I think that's going to be a game changer in the way that we do due diligence on assets. And I was initially skeptical about advertising an asset that was not hard under contract and how that would go, but I've seen through the process, the more transparency that you have, the more confidence that you can build with the investor. So I think this is definitely going to be a trend that we're probably going to see a lot more of, and I think that's really exciting. How do the investors get access to that data?
So they need to sign an NDA and start the AML KYC qualification. So I'm literally just taking you in to a deal room. So all of this information, the WeWork lease, the liability that you see, confirmation, right? The letter of credit, the estoppel agreements, the guarantee, right? Everything that you want, the drawings, the environmental, everything, right? The PCA, the construction information, the asbestos notice, the survey, the lead report, the compliance letter, the clean letter, all of this data literally is going to be attached and travel with the token for the life of it. So I don't know if any of you have ever been involved in a deal and 7 years later that deal goes bad, and what's the number one thing you think of? Oh, where's the data? You know what I mean? Oh, where's all that documentation, right, that you used, that you relied upon to make the investment, so that, because when it goes into adjudication, well, here it's all attached, it's all right there. And so I'm just going to give you an example, and this is this was not part of the presentation, but since you brought this up, let me give you an example. We are showing, this is Etherscan, right? And so this is for a transaction. We tokenized a small little deal on Friday of last week. And this is the wallet, this is the contract, right? And we can see, we go to the contract, we can see all of the various different, this was a bridge loan that Venium facilitated with a group called Flavigny. Frank, you know those guys. And here's all the transactions. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna look at this transaction. So we burned 1 day and 24 minutes ago, so yesterday, we burned into the payload a block. This is what's in the block. Here's what it looks like as a UTF. It's the promissory note of Flavigny. Here's the hash, and here's the cipher. We use the SHA-256 algorithm. But what does that mean for you? So I'm just gonna go get this. I'm gonna copy this link. Oh, I took too much there, sorry. I'm gonna copy this link. So this is not using our user-friendly interface, but if you actually want to know what's in the payload of a block, I'm going to go to a new, I'm going to paste this, and here's the actual note that was signed, right? So you did that. Now, let me go here, and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do this in an incognito window, so there's you don't know the cookies, that it doesn't know me, it doesn't know that I own those tokens, right? So I paste this, right? But what's going to happen is the password and user, because it's not going to recognize that I'm the owner of the tokens. Does that make sense? And so this is what happens, and every piece of data associated with that transaction is attached in the payload of the block. And the thing that's interesting is it's all fully searchable as both structured and unstructured data. So at any rate, I think that's going to be the end of our presentation. Are there any last questions? Tony, thanks for those last comments. Everybody, it's been a pleasure having you all here. I look forward to having further conversations with each and every one of you. If anybody has questions, please reach out to Kevin, Antonio, John, Brady, myself, Pat Murphy, all the various different folks who've been reaching out to folks, talking to them, and we're available to get that NDA to you, which we can sign via DocuSign. We'll do a basic AML KYC, invite you into the deal rooms, look at the deal docs, make sure it's something that you like, and then we'll work with you on structuring the bids. The interesting data point is, since we began this process and we advertised this 4 weeks ago, We have 11,700 individuals, which we estimate to be about 7,000 institutions who are actively interfacing with this. It's really an exciting reality that we have hedge funds in Hong Kong and Seoul, South Korea. We have funds in New York. We have, I think, the Chief Investment Officer of Marcus & Millichap is on right now. Good to have you on this. We have folks from BlackRock, Blackstone, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, all, as well as a whole variety of crypto funds, all interfacing with this offering. And this is a new reality that we didn't know how it would go. We're excited it's going so well. But again, this process is get an NDA, engage with us on AML, KYC, put you into the deal room, and then just let's have a conversation about your bid. Thanks, everybody. Good to be with you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.